Hello, I'm AstrologerCoach Sonja Francis, and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming new moon in Capricorn, which will be exact on January 11th at 6:57 a.m. New York time, East Coast time in the US, and 11:57 a.m. London time. Now, the moon aligns with the sun in almost 20 degrees of Capricorn, and this launches a new moon cycle. And with all new moon cycles, we're being invited to go within and to meditate or to just get into a silent place with ourselves to tune into the energies that we're connecting with over the next 28 days. Now, there are two quick things I would like to mention before we get started. One is my last podcast radio show for Solidity Today was focused on the hot dates for 2024. And if you haven't seen it yet, I really highly recommend you watching it. You can watch it either on YouTube at Solidity Today, or you can watch it on my website on the blog page. You can just click on category Pluto or Jupiter. So each of those categories, if you click on them, you will see the video. Then also, the second thing I wanted to mention is on January 24th at 1 p.m. New York time, we have our first forecasting forum of the year. We will talk about Uranus, the planet of breakthroughs, innovation, and change, as well as Pluto, the planet of deep transformation and power. Pluto is going to be moving back into Aquarius, which is the sign most associated with communities, technology, and future visions. So this is happening for the second time since last March 2023. And this time, Pluto will stay in Aquarius a little bit longer than last year. Last year was only about 2.5 months. This year, it will be until September 1st. And the third pass will be from November 19th of this year until January 2044. So this is quite a long transit here. It will be in there for 20 years. This is a 246-year cycle. So every 246 years, Pluto comes back to the same position in the sky. And this means that the last time Pluto was in Aquarius was from 1778 until 1798. And this was when the United States achieved its independence from Great Britain, all through its desire to create a place of the people, for the people, a place where freedom and equality were honored and aspired to. Now, join me for this powerful 90-minute webinar if you'd like to hear a little bit more about that also in connection with your own birth chart. And the early bird special is going to be only $32 until January 22nd. After that date, it will be $37. And everyone who's registered also gets access to the MP4 video recording of the live event. So even if you can't join us on that day or that time, you still have access to the video. Now, if you want to stay on the pulse of all the planetary shifts of this coming year and see how you can have a better understanding of all of the energies, there's going to be a lot of shifts and changes this year, how they can serve you personally. Feel free to join us every month. Become a star member of my online community to do so, and you're always going to be automatically registered. All right, so let's talk about the first new moon in 2024. New moons, generally speaking, are good times to reflect on our lives and set new intentions. And this is an excellent time to go within and plant a seed for anything we would like to accomplish over the next 28 days and beyond. And if you did make any New Year's resolutions, this new moon cycle would be a great time to implement and make good on those resolutions or intentions for this year. If you didn't set any new moon resolutions, I can't blame you, since Mercury was retrograde at midnight between 2023 and 2024. And it was also squaring Neptune in Pisces, so it may have felt a little bit too overwhelming to set any concrete intentions for 2024, or it wasn't even on your radar at all. But not to worry, January 11th is your next chance to set some great goals or intentions for 2024, and this time you will feel much more grounded, realistic, and excited about doing so. Now, since this new moon occurs in Capricorn, it directs us to investigate our relationship with authority, not just authority in the external sense, but also our own authority. Now, the highest vibration of Capricorn is self-mastery, the development of responsibility, resourcefulness, reliability, setting realistic goals, and healthy boundaries. So the next 28 days are perfect for working on these areas as much as we can. Now, since Capricorn represents the quest for self-mastery on the physical plane, some helpful questions that you can ask yourself for these next 28 days after the new moon becomes exact. What is my relationship to self-mastery? And am I going about things in a realistic way in my life currently, right now? And what does setting healthy boundaries look like for me? Now, especially when it comes to people we love and we have close relationships with, like family or close friends or a life partner, we really want to sort of tune into, like, do we set good boundaries with people that mean a lot to us? Because it's a little bit harder to do that when we are emotionally invested in a relationship. Now, what do I know about my limitations? This is another great question with the new moon in Capricorn, because Capricorn deals with the reality of things. And as human beings, the reality is that we have limitations. All of us do. So, but if we're not honest about it, if we're not honest about our own limitations and we're not truthful, like Capricorn likes to be, then those limitations can be really difficult for us to deal with, and also for other people around us to deal with us, because we're not conscious or truthful about who we are. So what do I know about my limitations? Great question to journal on in particular. And what do I know about other people's limitations? Now, it's often the case that even if we know our own limitations and what we're good at or not good at, often we don't consider that other people have limitations too. And as human beings, everyone does, right? Everyone has limitations. So we need to consider that and be maybe even compassionate about that. Now, the most prominent themes of this first new moon in 2024 are: there are 4 planets in Capricorn: Mars, the Sun, the Moon, and Pluto. And Pluto is in an exalted degree. So that's really powerful for this new moon. Second, the new moon trines Uranus in Taurus. This combination makes it easier to connect with the physical world in a new and innovative way, including how we connect with our own body and how we connect with the planet. Now, another point here with this new moon is that the new moon makes a square to Chiron, the wounded healer, and both of the moon nodes in Aries and Libra. This is asking to stretch us, to grow, to pay attention to the wounded masculine within us. Now, this journey is also a part of a larger soul agenda which impacts the collective and us on an individual level. So again, we'll talk about all of this in more detail in a moment. The next thing that we'll talk about is the new moon also sextiles Neptune in Pisces. And this allows us to soften our need for accomplishment with a much gentler, more intuitive approach, right? Neptune in Pisces, very intuitive. The other thing we'll talk about is Saturn, because Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn and is currently in Pisces, very intuitive sign. And Saturn will sextile Mars in Capricorn and Jupiter in Taurus at the time of the new moon. And this gives us an opportunity to bring more maturity, respect, and integrity to our connection with all of life and our physical realities, career goals, financial opportunities, etc. Now, another thing we'll talk about in more detail will be Mars also makes a trine to Jupiter, and this gives us the energy to follow through on our earthly plans and aspirations. Then another thing we'll talk about is Mercury in Sagittarius still squares Neptune in Pisces. And because Mercury just had a station and retrograde phase, and because of that, the planet was moving backwards, it was slowing down. And so Mercury was making a square to Neptune for quite a long time because of that. And so the square, you could say, began, it was within 5 degrees from December 23rd of last year. It started, and then it will last until January 13th, 2024. Now, this challenging aspect can bring confusion, overwhelm, or a need for more rest or creative or spiritual engagements in our lives. Now, we may also feel more impatient because, let's face it, Mercury is in Sagittarius. Now, Mercury is still in its post-shadow phase until January 20th. And this is asking us to revisit or investigate anything we have started or decided since November 25th of last year, when Mercury entered its pre-shadow phase. Now, last but not least, we have a Venus aspect that's worth mentioning. Venus in Sagittarius trines Chiron in Aries. And this harmonious aspect brings a chance to engage humorously about our flaws, about our insecurities. It's also a time for compassion and understanding towards other people. So, this is just a summarization of what we're dealing with this new moon. So there's a lot going on. So feel free to pause the video and come back to it if you need to. So let's begin with diving a little bit deeper into all of these particular points that I just mentioned. So we have 4 planets in Capricorn, which is the Sun, the Moon, Mars, and Pluto. And Pluto is within 10 degrees of the new moon, so it really influences the new moon agenda. Not only that, Pluto is also in an exalted degree, at the very, very last degree of Capricorn, 29 degrees and 58 minutes or something like that. So really in the very, very last part of Capricorn. And it will only be in Capricorn until January 20th. So therefore, this is within this new moon cycle, Pluto will switch signs. So therefore, the energy of Pluto is quite exalted at the time of the new moon. And a planet in the last degree of its sign feels much louder. It has more energy to it because it's trying to express as much as it can of its current sign before it moves into the next sign. So sort of like a last hurrah before it moves on into Aquarius. So this would indicate a strong urge for us to complete something, most likely something that was started when Pluto moved into Capricorn in 2008. So remember, Pluto has been in Capricorn for a long time, since 2008, and there is definitely an intensity of feelings in the air around long-term goals, aspirations, recognition of our limits, reclaiming our power out there in the world, lessons around agency, authority, our own authority, accountability, or all of that is intensified with this heightened Pluto in this new moon chart. So ask yourself, what deep empowerment process began for me in 2008 concerning any of these issues that we just mentioned? And what emotional journey connected to my authority or external authority figures did I experience? And in particular, since 2020, right? Because in 2020, not only was Pluto in Capricorn, we also had Saturn there. We had Jupiter there. We had Ceres there. We had the moon nodes there, right? So the south node. So because of that lineup in Capricorn in 2020, we in particular felt these issues rise up much stronger. Now, what needed to be transformed in my life since 2008? And what remains to be changed? What is there still something that we still need to do that we haven't finished off yet? And where do I need to clarify my priorities or honor my boundaries or respect my limits? So Pluto is always a deep dive into the unconscious, a deep dive into our fears, a deep dive into shadow issues. So we need to be dealing with stuff more consciously when it comes to Pluto And this is the journey. And this is why it takes so long for Pluto to move through a sign, because it takes time to do that work. It's a lot of intense work, and it's a lot of inner work. And because we're busy people and we're dealing with the outside world nonstop every day, this type of work takes time. Now, let's address the new moon's trine to Uranus in Taurus. So this combo makes it easier to connect with the physical world in a new and innovative way, including how we connect with our own body, our own finances, and our planet. Now, originality in innovation comes easy to us with this trine because it's a harmonious aspect, and so does connecting with like-minded people. So we can celebrate or leverage our idealism or any unorthodox approaches to life's challenges at this time. So ask yourself, what if I expressed whatever is uniquely me without apologies? And how might new, fresh, and practical ideas create progress for my long-term goals, career, or otherwise? And what is asking to be reinvented in my life? Now, Uranus starts its station phase only 3 days after the new moon becomes exact on January 14th, and it will be preparing to end its 5 months retrograde phase. And we will feel the energy of this planet very strongly until February 9th. And then until then, anything connected to the Uranus energy will come into our awareness quite strongly. And we are faced with this planet's message. So what might that message be for you? So pay attention when Uranus starts its station soon after the new moon. And since Uranus is all about breaking free from traditional structures and moving towards a new future, particularly a future that serves others as well as ourselves, we are invited to pay attention to any insights or ideas that we are receiving about what needs to change on a physical level, so we can experience more freedom. Now, whenever Uranus is involved, it is usually best to expect the unexpected, because there's a lot coming through from the other side, from our soul self. And sometimes these things can be things that we're not conscious of as a human being, and therefore it can be unexpected. It's not unexpected to the soul, but it's unexpected to our human consciousness. So ask yourself here with this station, am I honoring myself to the fullest? In other words, do I value what I have to offer to the world? My gifts, my talents? Am I connecting to a larger vision regarding my material resources or abundance? Is anything holding me back? And remember, with all of these coaching questions, you want to meditate on these coaching questions, you want to journal on these coaching questions, you just want to pose these questions and allow the answers to come to you. This is not an exercise in answering questions. This is an exercise in allowing ourselves to tap into the energies of what's going on around us at this particular time of this lunar phase. And so these questions are just a support system for us to get in touch with the energies more fully. Now, the new moon also makes a square to Chiron, the wounded healer, and the moon nodes in Aries, Libra. And so this means we need to pay attention to the wounded masculine within us. And there's a stretching and growing that we're invited to do. So when our masculine side is balanced with our feminine side, which each human being has both within themselves, right? There's masculine and there's feminine energies within ourselves. Doesn't matter what gender you are. And when that is balanced, we express our power more responsibly, and we have better boundaries. We're not dominating others, or we're also not denying our feelings and our desires. Now, with a balanced masculine, we are also more capable of showing compassion and understanding towards ourselves and other people. So this is an opportunity here really to embrace our own humanity. And in order to do that, we need to be compassionate, because being a human being is not so easy. It's very complex. You know, we have to deal with mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, energetic connections. So it's complex to be a human being. So compassion is a great tool to use when it comes to our own humanity. So ask yourself, what might change for myself and others if I brought 5% more compassion and kindness to myself when feeling insecure or ashamed? And what could support a healthier balance of my feminine, masculine energies? Now, the new moon also squares the moon nodes, right? So that indicates a turning point on our journey, collectively and individually speaking. And we're being asked to take a 90-degree turn to become more aware of our authority in the world. So the challenge here with these squares to the moon nodes is that it's really important for us right now to do things the right way, how we're supposed to do it, how we should be showing up in society, all the shoulds. But it may not always align with what we truly want for ourselves, right? So Aries has to do with who we are and what we want. But Capricorn has to do with our social image out there in the world and our social conditioning. So there's a conflict sometimes between how we show up in the world or how we portray ourselves to the outside world and what we really want for ourselves or who we are truly, our human persona. So ask yourself, if the world needed something from me, what might that be? And are my ambitions interfering with my ability to connect with others? How can I stay true to myself while considering other people's needs? So we have to remember, right, the moon nodes are in Libra, Aries. So Aries, that's me, Libra is other people, and Capricorn is who we are out there in the world, and also our authority, right, how we show up in the world as an authority and a sovereign being. Now, the empty leg of this new moon squaring the moon nodes lies in Cancer. Now, we are invited to pay attention to our basic needs: love and acceptance, safety and security, very basic needs. And we are reminded to nurture ourselves, especially our feeling body, and to be open to receiving support from familiar and trusted people, as best as we can, of course. And the reason why this is important is because the new moon in Capricorn wants to be very self-sufficient. It doesn't want to ask for help. It doesn't want to deal with emotions. It wants to deal with facts and with reality. So in order to balance out this Capricorn energy that's already being stretched and stressed by the moon nodes polarity, we are being invited to integrate that Cancer energy, which is all about nurturing and feeling and support and receiving support, giving support and receiving support. So ask yourself, how could I nurture myself to the point that I'm at once connected to others and yet wholly independent? And what role does inner safety, physical and emotional, play in all of this? And how might a commitment to my emotional well-being support me with my long-term goals and my relationships, including the one with myself? And how might nurturing myself support my connection to the world at large? How might it support my career ambitions? And what if self-care was a first step towards meaningful achievement? So these are some really great questions for this, you could say T-square. And the new moon also sextiles Neptune in Pisces, and this gives us an opportunity to soften our need for accomplishment with a gentle, much more intuitive approach. So this is something we have to take advantage of, an opportunity. A sextile is an opportunity. So it's not necessarily something that's given to us, but if we're aware of this combination, then we can certainly make the best out of that. So ask yourself, how might meditation or mindfulness, simply being present in the now moment to all the energies inside of me and around me, support me in manifesting fulfilling long-term goals? And what might a good dose of trust in divine timing and support do for my achievements? And how do I do with trusting myself, my intuitive knowing? How about trusting the flow of life? Now, right now, we have a unique opportunity to trust our inner processes much more deeply. But we're also able to allow the universe, source, or higher self to step in and guide us as we build structures that support something sustainable and long-lasting. So ask yourself, what does this look like for me? What could I manifest if I was simply present in the now moment to all the energies inside and around me? What would my starting point be then? Now, Saturn. Let's talk about Saturn. Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn, so this is a very important planet in this new moon chart. It is currently in Pisces. It sextiles Mars in Capricorn and Jupiter in Taurus. And this gives us an opportunity to bring more maturity, respect, integrity to our connections with all of life and our physical realities, such as career goals, financial opportunities, etc. Now, Saturn in Pisces invites us to look for practical applications of our dreams, of our ideologies, connecting to source or one consciousness. And we're also being asked to firm up our intuitive connection to life. It is a time to focus on what works and what doesn't when it comes to our idealism, our addictions, our avoidance of life, and our dreams. So we really need to, with Saturn, we always need to buckle down and really look at what's working, what's not working. And this planetary placement also invites us to tap into our strength from within and trust our divinity and the connection to our intuition. So slowing down and going with the flow is really, really important with Saturn in Pisces. Now, Saturn's sextile to Jupiter in Taurus invites us to realistically explore our finances and resources, like our personal talents and gifts, and see our value and preferences as ours and ours alone. And so this also allows us to better understand our social conditioning, our beliefs, our perspectives, our attitudes. So ask yourself here, what difference might it make on my journey towards spiritual self-mastery if I believed in myself 100%? My gifts, my talents, if I believed in them 100%. And what if I took 5% more responsibility for my perspectives, my attitudes, and how I value myself? Am I doing it? Am I actually valuing who I am? Or am I just relying on other people to value me? Now, could I slow down for a moment and take in what is truly happening inside and around me? Could I trust that everyone is exactly where they need to be, including myself, financially, concerning my self-worth, in regards to valuing myself? Could I trust that I'm exactly where I need to be? Now, it's also an opportunity to have more self-discipline and self-motivation in our lives. Now, ask yourself, how might sourcing my energy from within support a stronger connection to myself and my talents? And how might a practical and long-term sustainable approach towards my body or my finances serve my enjoyment of life in the long run? All right, so let's talk a little bit about Saturn sextile to Mars in Capricorn. Now, this is an excellent time to look for a more authentic relationship with our inner knowing and sensing. We have a chance to face life with idealism and maturity. We tend to be more practical than usual, and our progress in most projects may be a little bit more slower, but it's going to be steady, right? Capricorn is all about being steady. And this can be a very productive time in our lives, especially if we plan for the long term and if we stay consistent. So ask yourself, could I trust my inner knowing or intuition 5% more? And what resonates with my inner core? Now, what is realistic and practical? What practices are sustainable for the long haul? And what am I being asked to give up for a stronger connection to my inner guidance? So because Mars is in Capricorn and Saturn rules Capricorn, you could say in a sense that Mars answers to Saturn in Pisces. And just as the new moon does, because it's also in Capricorn. So it answers to Saturn in Pisces. And so, really connecting to our ability to tune in and to be real with our connection to intuition and our connection to our interconnectivity with all of life, nature, cosmos, right? This is all very important. We're learning something here. We're practicing to get better at really trusting ourselves and trusting life. And so anything that keeps us from doing that, Saturn will always say, get rid of it. Don't do it any longer. So anything that keeps you from truly connecting to yourself, to your intuition, to truly trusting life needs to go. Now, Mars in Capricorn also trines Jupiter in Taurus. And this gives us sort of like an ability to follow through on our plans and aspirations. And there's also, of course, with Jupiter involved, there's always a positive attitude. And that helps us take risks that get us unstuck. And we have the energy to blast through all of these challenges right now. So ask yourself, where am I pining for more significant results from my long-term goals and aspirations? And what might be possible if I kept being the change I want to see in the world? How might a positive attitude support me in that? So we have to really watch, how we're interacting and engaging with the physical world, Now, the 28 days after the new moon becomes exact are a good time for bold, decisive action that directly leads to success in our various projects. So keep that in mind. Put a note in your calendar. Mercury in Sagittarius also still squares Neptune in Pisces. And that's another thing we want to talk about because it's such a long process that this has been happening. And as I mentioned earlier already, because of Mercury's station and retrograde phase, this has been going on. We've been feeling that pretty much since December 23rd of 2023, and it will last until January 13th of 2024. Now, this challenging aspect really, it invites us to listen to tune in, to listen to ourselves, and we might not be able to do that because with Mercury in Sagittarius, we feel impatient. We want to do something out there in the world. We want to move forward fast. We want to learn. We want to explore. So Neptune asks us, though, to tune in, to connect. So listening to inspiring or spiritual music or podcasts can really be a great way to work with these energies. So ask yourself, what has come up for me since December 23rd of last year regarding slowing down, resting, going inward versus rushing, impatience, moving forward? And how about external engagements versus internal inspiration? What have you been experiencing that in terms of that push-pull? External engagement versus internal inspiration. And what have I learned since December 23rd in regards to this aspect? Because remember, a stretch aspect, we're always trying to evolve. We're trying to do better with it, right? We're trying to move to that next level of our evolution. So what have I learned and what do I still need to learn? Now, Mercury is still in its post-shadow phase until January 20th, and this is asking us to revisit or investigate anything we have started or decided since November 25th of last year when Mercury entered its pre-shadow phase. So ask yourself, what comes to mind when you hear that, and what is asking for completion or reconsideration? Now, on January 13th, Mercury will re-enter Capricorn again, reminding us to be responsible and realistic with our words and thoughts, and setting realistic long-term goals for ourselves and practicing compelling, truthful, and mature communication will be really helpful after January 13th. And then also, once Mercury has moved into Capricorn, ask yourself, what am I ready to tackle? What's realistic? What plans could I make that will support my long-term goals? Now, we have a Venus aspect worth mentioning. Venus in Sagittarius trines Chiron in Aries. And this harmonious aspect brings a chance to engage with other people from a place of humor and fun in connection to our own flaws or insecurities. It's a little bit lighter, possibly brings some lightness. And it's also a time for compassion and understanding towards others. And we are more willing to be adventurous at this time because we see the bigger picture and we're willing to create a sort of like a narrative that supports our healing process. And this could create an opening to heal some wounds, some really old wounds from the past. So use that energy. And we also more easily see beauty in human weaknesses rather than fault. And this is a really beautiful thing. It's sort of like a strong time for seeing potential in one another. So just check and see, what potential do you see during that time? Now, to sum it all up, the first new moon of 2024 asks us to take a look at our relationship to truth, responsibility, accountability, and power. It also calls us to stand for love, truth, and healing. It reminds us that each one of us is wounded and can heal through the power of compassion and acceptance. And we want to ask ourselves here is, might a holistic approach, meaning seeing myself as a spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical being, support my personal healing journey at this time? And as best as you can, keep breathing, feeling, and witnessing. And remember, we're all participating in an unprecedented evolutionary shift. This is all quite intense right now. And we are divine beings living in a dense physical reality. And as our own energy field rises and becomes lighter and becomes more spiritually aware, we're also becoming more aware of the contrast. So we're becoming more aware of the denser physical reality as we are raising our energy up into a more spiritually conscious place. So we have to remember, that this is part of the journey. And we also have to remember that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience on this planet. So if you can, choose wisely for 2024 and beyond. Participate consciously in the evolution of existence on this planet. And not from a fearful place, but from the knowing that you have a ton of inner strength and personal power. We all do. And that's the power of your heart and your humanity. That is our own personal power. Now, if you have an ascendant or any personal planets in 20 to 25 degrees of Capricorn, Cancer, Aries, or Libra, then this new moon will impact you more strongly. If you don't have any personal planets or angles in those signs or degrees, take a look at where 20 degrees of Capricorn lands in your own birth chart, because that area of your life, that house, will indicate where you need to focus your energies for the next 28 days. Now, the new moon is also the best and most potent time to set powerful intentions. And so for this month's moon cycle, the perfect time will be from 6:57 a.m. on January 11th until 4:59 a.m. on January 13th. There's one exception. There will be a very brief moonward, of course, which will last for 28 minutes between 9:33 p.m. until 10:01 p.m. on January 11th. And this is all Eastern time, New York time zone. If you live in a different time zone than US East Coast time, and converting time zones isn't your thing, I suggest you can join my Facebook fan page or follow me on Twitter or on Instagram. And I will put reminders down for when it's the best time to set your intentions for this new moon cycle. So just when you see those posts, just sit down and write some powerful intentions. If you need to read an article about how to set your intentions, there is an article on my website at astrologercoach.com. There will be a link below this video that will point you to that article. There will also be a link below this video for my first forecasting forum of 2024, if you would like to join us for that. And there will also be a link for the Solidity Today show where we talk about 2024. So feel free to take advantage of all of those links below. And if you don't see them or you can't find them, just reach out to me at info@astrologercoach.com and I'll be happy to send those links to you. And yeah, have a fantastic 2024. Get really centered in your body, especially until the end of May. And really allow yourself to raise your own body's vibration, to raise your own physical vibration as much as you can. Have a good one. And I will talk to you again in a couple of weeks. If you're a member, you will see my full moon video. If you're not a member currently, then I will see you in about 4 weeks for the next new moon video. And as always, if you would like to check out my memberships, the first month is for free for the universal membership and you can cancel it anytime. So feel free to take advantage of that if that's of interest to you. All right, have a good one. Much love.